It is a beauteous evening, calm and free, by William Wordsworth, and it really is a beautiful poem. Just to give you the context of it, it's a recalling of a walk that he actually had with his 9-year-old daughter along a beach in France. And if you have to mention anything about the structure of the poem, you'll see that it's a Petrarchan sonnet. So by definition, a sonnet contains 14 lines. A Petrarchan sonnet, also known as an Italian sonnet. There are only two types of sonnets, a Petrarchan and a Shakespearean, also known as an English sonnet. And the format of a Petrarchan sonnet means it has an octave and a sestet, which essentially means it has a stanza of 8 lines and a stanza of 6 lines. And the octave and the sestet take on two different directions, or two different angles, or two different themes. It's usually what we call a volta that separates the two. But there doesn't have to necessarily be two separate stanzas physically. For example, in this poem, it's all one long stanza. That doesn't mean that the octave and the sestet doesn't exist. It is there, all right? And by definition as well, a sonnet is always written in iambic pentameter. That means that there's a set rhythm of 5 stressed syllables and 5 unstressed syllables per line. So there are 10 syllables per line. Okay. And while we're at the top here, I've said that the use of adjectives creates a sense of beauty and calm, and the assonance used throughout the poem creates a musical, natural rhythm. Now, before we get into the poem itself, just to give you an idea of what the poem is really about, the poet, or the speaker as we refer to him as, is in complete awe by the beauty of nature, right? Specifically at evening time. He expresses his appreciation for the feeling of tranquility that he experiences, of calmness that he experiences while he's in nature. There's a lot of reference to God as well, so he views the scene through a Christian lens, and he assures his daughter that God's presence is everywhere, and that God is all-knowing. He states that even if or when his daughter doesn't express devotion to God or spend time in a physical place of worship, God is always there, and the fact that she's a child, she's not able to have the maturity to really appreciate the beauty of nature and of God's creation like he is able to. That doesn't mean that God loves her any less. Okay, so we get to the first line of the poem, which is the title as well. It is a beauteous evening, calm and free. Okay, so we look at the diction in that line, and we're looking at the words. What are they telling us? Okay, well, it's telling us that it's a beautiful evening. The atmosphere is peaceful. It's tranquil. All right, the person is completely at ease. There's no worries. There's no stress at all. Evening is often the most gentle and quiet time of the day. Okay, and free means you don't have any pain or any stress, right? The holy time is quiet as a nun, breathless with adoration. There's a lot of enjambment here, and you can see the enjambment here where this sentence runs from one line to the next. Okay, so the holy time, evening prayers, right? The evening is being compared to a nun in prayer. Because we can have as there, so we know that there's a simile, there's a comparison there, and being a nun means she's somebody who is very close to God, all right? And she's so close to God, and she herself is breathless with adoration. Her breath has been taken away. She cannot even hear her breath because she's in such awe of the nature that is around her. But it's not just the nun, it's also the speaker as well. He's also had his breath taken away because he is just in absolute awe of the beauty of nature and everything that God has created as he is going along this walk. All right, the semicolons here that I've highlighted in purple are just used to balance the images of equal weight, just to show that one is as important as the next. All right. So we go here, it says the broad sun is sinking down in its tranquility, repetition of the S there, got a bit of alliteration going. And it's not the sun itself that is broad, it just means that as the sun is setting, and we know it's setting because it's evening time, as it's setting, the rays of the sun stretch out across the horizon and make the sky orange. And as we know, that creates a mood, or adds to the peaceful atmosphere, because we all know how beautiful a sunset can be. And the broad sun is sinking down, okay, so it's going down over the horizon, in its tranquility, in its calmness. The whole atmosphere, the whole world at that point seems to be calm. You know, we can have some beautiful sunsets when the wind has died down, and you can just see the sun reflecting off the water of the rivers and the seas, and nature just seems to be at its most beautiful. The gentleness of heaven broods over the sea. Okay, so we've got personification here. All right, the heaven is described as being gentle, which adds to the peaceful atmosphere, right? And the gentleness of heaven is brooding, contemplating deeply over the sea, looking over the sea. All right, the sea is reflecting the skies, which is heaven, and of course we know in heaven is God. So figuratively, God is actually watching over the world, you know, not just the sea itself, but watching over everything that is on earth. All right, so it is beautiful, and it is godly, and it is gentle. Okay, heaven is watching over earth. And now the speaker wants to really share his excitement and his admiration for nature with his daughter. All right, he wants her to be an active participant in the scene. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, they're just going for a walk. She's probably not really taking in how beautiful the scene is, that he is, and he wants her to recognize how beautiful it is. And so he says, listen, which is an imperative, it's a command, all right? And the exclamation mark over there is telling me that he's excited, right? He says, the mighty being is awake. Now, the mighty being is awake is referring to the sea, okay, literally, because the sea is always moving, the waves are always crashing against the shore, all right? But the fact that being is capitalized there means more than that. It means that it's referring to God as well. The mighty being, the mighty creator is awake. He's always watching. He's always there with us. He's always present. They're eternal, right? And doth, just the old-fashioned way of saying, does, with his eternal motion make a sound like thunder, everlasting. All right? So, eternal meaning forever, motion make. We've got the alliteration emphasizing the thunderous sound of the sea, the eternal motion showing that God and the sea are eternal, will go on forever and ever. All right, and the waves breaking against the shore is being compared to the sound of thunder, a sound like thunder. So we've got a simile there. All right, and then we've got that dash there, which emphasizes the word which follows to say that it is in fact everlasting. Right, it's never going to stop. So just as the sea never stops, so is God never going away. And that indicates the power of both nature and God. And then that's the end of the octave, all right? Even though the stanzas aren't split, obviously, because it is a Petrarchan sonnet, we know that those are the 8 lines up. Done, okay? Now he wants to address his daughter directly, okay? So he says, dear child, dear girl that walketh with me here. Okay, so he said this in a loving tone. He's expressing his love and adoration for his daughter, right? That walkest with me. Okay, so just to show that you're walking with me here. Here we are in the middle of nature during the evening. If thou appear untouched by solemn thought, thy nature is not therefore less divine. So even if she doesn't know or comprehend it now, she's still made of the same divine material as all creation. So even if he's saying directly to her that you are oblivious to the beauty that's around you. You're untouched by this serious thought that I'm in, that I'm, just awestruck by. Even if she's not touched by the beauty of the scene, it does not mean that she is removed from God. She's no less divine, she's still a creation of God. And this colon here is now going to introduce the explanation of the child's divine state. Okay? The function of the colon. The speaker says, "Thou liest in Abraham's bosom all the year, and worshipped at the temple's inner shrine." Okay, so we've got a metaphor here. Okay, Abraham was a prophet. He was honored for his obedience to God, just how a father would protect their child. The girl is unknowingly protected by God all the year, at all times, and he's emphasizing that. He's trying to tell her that, listen, heaven, Abraham, God, right, is protecting you always. And worships at the temple's inner shrine. So only the high priests are allowed to enter the temple, but he's referencing nature here. He's saying even if she doesn't express devotion to God, because a child doesn't really know how to do that. So even if she doesn't do that, God is always present in nature. It doesn't mean that God is removed from nature, or that she's removed from nature at all. The mighty being, God being, that we refer to in line 6, the mighty being, God being with thee when we know it not. So he's saying God is with you even if you are not aware of it. And we've got the assonance there, as I mentioned earlier, creating a sort of musical, natural rhythm. And the assonance is emphasizing God's presence. And remember, when you get a question about alliteration or assonance, it doesn't mean that the sound has to represent the sound of the words. Okay, the alliteration or the assonance can emphasize what is being said, the message in those lines. Okay, so sometimes you have to think a little bit out of the box. You think to yourself, okay, there's alliteration or assonance there. What is the message that the poet is trying to get across here? And then that assonance or that alliteration is emphasizing what is being said. Okay. And so humans are a part of nature and thus part of the divine, because nature is created by God, right? And so therefore are humans. Children are always close to God. They maintain a natural sense of wonder and faith, so they do not react with the same awe as adults do. Children are in fact the most holy of God's creatures, and we lose this as we grow or mature, even though the speaker is well aware of just how beautiful nature is and his surroundings. So with that in mind, we can say that the tone is one of awe, one of tranquility, peacefulness, calmness, and one of respect, because the speaker is really respecting God, the Creator, the God Almighty, for the wonderful, beautiful nature that He has created. And the rhyme scheme is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CED. Right? Sometimes it's CDE, TDE, but sometimes it changes a little bit. But you'll find in a Petrarchan sonnet that the octave is almost always ABBA, ABBA.